Can you hear the background noise on my end?
I'm not hearing any background noise on your end, so sounds good
Oh,
to me.
good. That's good. That's good to know. All right, so now we're officially live. All right, so okay, so we introduce ourselves first. Okay, all right. Or who's talking first? I'm just trying to figure this out.
Okay, yeah, I accidentally already clicked the link over YouTube, so I had it going into it. There might be a small delay, but yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to introduce you guys. That would probably be normal.
Okay.
And to you know, just bring us together. Okay, so hello world, and in particular, my English 102 class at Los Angeles City College. We're here to discuss the short story and the purpose and careers of Jesse Tovar and Kristian Kidd. The short story is called Fishfire. It's ostensibly for the class, but it was really just a chance to introduce my students to practicing writers as opposed to studying, people from the books in the past, because it's nice to know that this world still lives on, where people value stories, where people value fiction. And I'm happy to know, just to introduce, I'm happy to know Jesse. He was one of my students just a few years ago at Los Angeles City College, and is soon to finish his master's degree in English. And Kristian, I'm just meeting for the first time. So, but I'd like you guys to maybe tell a little bit about yourselves as well. But yeah, so like I said, this is a real chance to talk with the writers, and I'll maybe ask a few questions, but I'm also going to let them, present their meaning and purpose, if that makes sense. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jesse Tovar.
Oh, hey everyone. Hello, English 102, spring 2021. I'm Jesse. Thank you all for you reading Fishfire that Kristian and I wrote. Kristian and I met about 6 years ago at a coffee shop when they were doing like open mics. And the reason I came to the open mic was because another professor asked me to sing with him while he performed the harmonica. His name is Stanley Oropesa. And that same night, Kristian was reading his poetry, and we just, I guess, had conversation during the event, and we became friends soon after that. And then about a year after meeting, we decided to write this short story together. Sometime after I completed my English 127 class and so on. Yeah.
My name is Kristian Kidd. It's great to be here with all of you. I apologize for any background noise. I was not able to make it home before the interview started. However, I promise to project as best as I can. Yes, like Jesse said, we met about 5.5, 6 years ago, and in 2017, decided to write Fishfire together. I am currently in a teaching credential program. At the time I met Jesse, I was in a bachelorette program. I baccalaureate, not bachelorette. I graduated with my bachelor's in history from Azusa Pacific in 2019, and then went back to the credentialing program in the fall of last year, and will finish hopefully the fall of this year. So I love writing. Like Jesse said, he met me when I was writing poetry and I was just starting to perform it and get it under my belt. And I love to write short stories and fiction and stuff like that. And so Jesse and I decided to put our collective minds together and write Fishfire. And after a lot of his hard work and me just sitting around saying, looks good, we finished it.
That's pretty funny. It's interesting. I've done collaboration as well, and the creative drive as a writer, talking about story. But yeah, so if I could just maybe, I'm on the fence. Like, I want to start out, but we should know a little bit about the story first. But yeah, so as a lead-in, can I ask like the genesis for the story? and then explain the story. Like why did you guys think about writing this, and what is the story, if you don't mind? Whoever wants to answer.
I would say that the genesis of this story would be about like people living their lives, especially like during like major events. In this case, a wildfire, and so forth. And like even though something crazy like that is happening, people are still going through their own lives. They're still dealing with their own issues. So yeah, I would say that'd be like that's basically the main idea of the story. And yeah.
Yeah, Jesse proposed the idea based, and I was going to school in Azusa at the time, and he proposed the idea based on a series of fires that shut down a really famous trail. For a couple of years, actually, they were shut down. And so we decided that we would take my interest in the fantastical and in the horror genre and combine it with more practical what's going on in everyday life. And there are plenty of ways to look at the story from a psychological or sociological lens, but I think at the end of the day, we just wanted to write a story together. And sometimes I think what the story proves is okay to write a story just to write a story and just to tell certain events. You can't help but leave your fingerprints on the crime scene. So you can't help but leave your imprints, your psychological approaches, your beliefs about society and people, and your experiences in a story. But I think in many ways we wanted to tell a story about something that was familiar to us. So Jesse came up with the idea, and I thought it was a great idea, and we went from there.
Good stuff. Yeah. So for the plot, just so people can follow along, yes, we know setting is going to be these canyons in the mountains, sort of east of Los Angeles, and hiking trails and things like that. And yeah, I'm definitely aware of some fires in there. Fish Canyon is a real place, I assume.
That is correct.
That's
yes.
What it's called. Okay, yeah, I'm
Fish
like,
Canyon.
That's an interesting metaphor. If it's
I know,
not,
right? The firefighters have decided that name. They decided Fish Fire, and then they went with Complex Fire after that. Yeah.
Right. So everything, the setting, the area is all real. It's all about 25 miles or 20 miles from Los Angeles, going east, right by the Azusa Glendora area, and the East San Gabriel Valley, as it's known. And everything about that is real. Everything we wrote is fiction. So.
And so you mentioned liking horror, and I just wanted to make sure that this was clear to the readers. So there are people on the path as I'm reading, and there's a fire, and it's am I wrong? It seems to me that these people are trapped and die. I mean, it's just ghost or lingering spirit. Is that right or wrong?
Okay, so what I'll say to that is one part of the story is like a flashback to another wildfire in the same canyon around the late 50s. And then in the present day, they're just talking about that. And then that's when, after they finish talking about that, that's when the fire breaks out.
So the characters, they escape this main fire.
Yes.
They're not killed. Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm not sure that I understood the history part, but I admit I need to go back and reread it. But thank you for the explanation. And so the conversation that they have becomes quite telling, quite important, right? They're talking about their own existence, their own past. These are relatively young people, or is there a range of ages?
Well, Marina is the younger individual, and Kerning is the older individual.
Yeah, the whole basic point of the plot is to show that this very same people who magically and inexplicably cast the fire some years ago have come back to cast a new fire. And so Kearney is kind of in that position where he was the one who escaped that original fire, and so tells that story. And basically Kearney's issue is he's an alcoholic, and he tends to kind of dwell on the past and return to it. And her whole issue is she needs to listen. She has an issue with the masculinity of her fiance, and so she actually finds Kearney to be a reassuring, steady, wise old man kind of a thing. So that's the dynamic.
Yeah.
I wanted a young woman trying to find herself and an old drunk, basically. I say as I drink a beer.
I know. I'm so jealous, actually.
That's yeah, a nice cold beer is good on a warm day. Okay, so the characters, is there a kind of destiny in that they each or that the one has something that the other needs? Is that part of that psychological issue of how when we form ourselves and when we try to complete ourselves, it often involves other people?
You know what's funny? I didn't actually think about them per se. Well, not necessarily needing each other, but in a sense, I would say yeah, because Marina does look to Kearney as an older figure to like get advice from and stuff, especially at that very moment.
It's I assume it's complete, no intention of developing it anymore. Is that true?
That is true.
Yeah. The characters tend to be rather static, but really what Karina is looking for is a little bit of release. She wants to get, I think Jesse would agree with this, she wants to get out of her head. And so she tell her basically about some of the harsh experiences he has right before another fire breaks. So I think I think the whole point of the story is that she's almost like the inquisitive, and he can't help but tell a story.
Okay. Yeah.
How many people are drink? I remember the sipping and the vodka. So how many people are drinking? Both of them.
Yeah, both of them. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As they're as Kearney tells that story about the 1958 fire. Yeah.
That's good. And real interesting focus on place. The history. I mean, I happen to know a little bit about that area in particular, but greater Southern California, some of the references I noticed, they have backstory. That's why I was kind of curious if there, in a way, any story could be developed into more, but I wasn't sure where you guys were at on that. But it seems like you put in a little bit of research and
Right.
Well, good connections to California.
Right. So if you want to go to the history aspect, I guess I provided that, being a history person. That's my favorite subject. That was what I was majoring in back then. But basically, the idea is I wanted to focus on the 50s and an all-American family. When it comes to setting and location, however, Jesse is an absolute expert. And I don't say that to blow smoke up his skirt. He knows areas that other people live in that are 40 miles away better than they know it themselves. So he definitely knew what was going on in that area. He knew about the canyon. He knew about the fires. He had it up to date. So really, I think I was responsible for the time. He was responsible for the setting.
Yeah, good. And so some of that religious stuff is true. Witches and devil worshippers and say, that's crazy to me, but I don't doubt it. Like there was never a moment where I was like, nah, this is BS. I was like, yeah, I bet you there were some weirdos. And so, yeah, probably that's true, huh? It is a little haunting in a sense. Frankly, that's why I wasn't sure. So one of the things from the teacher's perspective, it tends to happen a bit too much is, we often try to put things into genres, and already I'm seeing in this story this desire to almost thwart that idea. because it doesn't feel like it's one thing. It doesn't feel like it's another thing. It's kind of cool in that regard. But yeah, some good history with that. It was, I mean, I want to say a little scary in a way, but I don't know if that's what you were going for.
I want to say with Kristian, I want to believe that that's what we were going for, especially towards like the backstory of the 1958 fire.
Well, really, what you're left with, and this is the conundrum of the whole story, is what does every good 1950s story about the all-American family need? Not communists, not nuclear war, witches. So I think we wanted to take a twist of the supernatural, we're both religious, but I don't think it's a religious story. I think
Definitely.
yeah, no, no, some of the scenes are clearly not. But I think the whole point of the story is to point out that there's something mystical going on. That wouldn't it be amazing that if these fires that cause all this that can be so well explained by science are actually being caused by which that aren't supposed to exist anymore, because we live in a post-puritanical America.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So it's a happy ending, or is a mixed feeling at the end. But I didn't feel like it was sad at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we definitely did intend for it to be sad. It was definitely, we were going for like a mix of like, well, Marina's gonna go on from here and figure out what she wants to do with Ansley, especially since they were heading towards a wedding and they do end up getting married. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So the sex part, since it almost seemed like we were going right there with the last one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So that was also something that was curious. You know, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't read enough of what's out there today. And so, you know, it's not. So I mean, I know erotica as a genre, but you're doing something different with the graphic, you know, maybe more than usual graphic description. But again, because it wasn't like the dominant part of the story, it was like an interesting, you know, I don't know, it makes it, I feel like I understand the character, you know, through the actions, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was handled fairly well. So any comment there? That was all by intention.
Yeah, absolutely. What motivated that intention when we wrote it was we based it off of somebody that I knew also at LACC, who went through like a similar situation from during their engagement. So for the period of their engagement, that is basically what they just engaged in only until the wedding day.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that she did I'm not gonna say that she was upset about it or like felt any I guess passive aggressiveness. I'm not gonna say that, but that's just something that I just invented as for this character.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the there's two stories behind this one. I was sitting in the hat. Jesse walks in and shows me his section, and I read through it and I'm like, what the heck did you just put in my story? And at first I was very incredulous, but when I understood what was going on, I think there's a lot you can say. This was before the Me Too movement, but I think there's a lot you could say in the wake of that and everything else that really makes a big difference. And I think it's one of those things where, you know, for some reason Leonardo da Vinci wanted to paint, and so did Michelangelo, a bunch of naked people, and they were more beautiful that way. And I think you can capture something deeper in the act of sex. the whole point is turning the tables, I think. And I think that what you get in the character of Marina is someone who is very, very unhappy, in the sense that she's just stuck in a rut. So in order to make things interesting, she turns the tables, quite literally. And the second story that connects to that is we had a trip to the beach. Jesse was there with a couple other friends of mine. And we had another friend who was an English person, and he actually read the story aloud to us. And interesting, me, Jesse, and this friend, we all stood on one side, and then three other of my friends were there, stood on the other side, and they said, "This is gross, this is disgusting." But all the English people, all the trained people in English could understand, oh, it's art. There's something else deeper going on here. So these people would hardly blink at Michelangelo's David. And so there was no but for some reason, our scene was a little bit too much. But what it really comes down to, I think, at the end of the day, is a unhappy person turning the tables in an unhappy relationship. And she actually, I think, feels more in the story a kindred spirit to Kearney than to her own fiance. And she's so bored and monotonous that she would rather hear a story from Kearney than have the routine sex that she's having with her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and like I said, it wasn't. It clearly wasn't gratuitous or you know, for the purpose to titillate. I understood that it was, you know, maybe as a reader, it's not hard for me, but I understood that it had its purpose in the story. That is kind of interesting. So yeah, so this idea of another idea that I've been trying to work with the students on is understanding plot twists or you know, these reversals that happen so much in stories, and also we've been looking at irony quite a bit because that's obviously such a key feature. That a little bit of maybe starting from the point of how did you figure out how you wanted to flip the characters or even the scenes? That was, you know, for instance, did you make notes or did you just kind of draft and see what you got and then go back and edit? Maybe talk about the process of developing that.
Oh no, we definitely started out with notes with Kristian and I, like meeting up, discussing ideas. I would even at times go as far as to like be like, okay, hang on. I would walk away from our table and look for a pen and a piece of napkin to write some like quick things down so I didn't forget them. Even though I have a phone, I can take notes on it. But yeah.
And so with the purpose of taking the character or characters on this journey where they discover about themselves, that's the purpose of some of the
What's going you're muted yourself, Evan?
It could be me. My internet sometimes is doing weird things. I was trying to ask, like, so you plot to get character from point to point B, going through this, you know, these reversals or these changes in mindset and all of that. That was kind of what I was just getting at. But yeah, it sounds like you know, you thought about how to get to. So sometimes, you know, maybe more often than not, stories start kind of with the end in the writer's mind. You know, like where's the end of this going to be? How do we want the readers to feel at the end? And like I said, that's like the most accomplished to me part of the story is I'm feeling your characters. You know, I'm feeling where they're at. So you know, in the development process, that was part of the goal. I guess I'm asking if that was cut off. I'm sorry. To sort of plot the changes, where you'd have the character at what point and what the character would be doing. But a lot of that's in conversation, huh? This Kearney character is just met on the path. Is that true? There's no other history between them?
They met at the path, but before they meet at the path that day, they live in the same neighborhood, so they're basically like neighbors.
All right, that's pretty good. So yeah, and then they're literally kicked off the path because the fire crew is coming and telling them your day is over.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And then the wedding is going to be, they're on their, she's on her way to the wedding.
No. She's on her way back home. Kearney walks her back to her place because she like ended up getting like loose from drinking the vodka in the flask.
So there's an is the I this is the first person throughout?
It is first person throughout, but one half of it is in Marina's perspective, and then the other half, after the backstory of 1958, that's all told by Kearney's perspective.
Okay.
So there are two eyes.
There are two eyes.
It's a story within a story.
Yeah. And that's it. That's I have it up in the background. That's the asterisk part in the middle shows that change, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's cool. Well, yeah, that's pretty good stuff. Like I said, I wasn't sure if any of my students would be by, but I know that they're going to be curious to hear a little bit about the motive. Can I ask you, are you still writing together? Or are you still planning other stories? I mean, I know that life and career sometimes get in the way, but how do you start being creative and then stop? So you're going to still be creative, right?
Well, I married a woman from Japan, and now we've split over creative differences. We had our Yoko Ono moment. Jesse and I still write together. During the pandemic, we haven't. He's been busy with his master's portfolio. I have been busy with my credentialing. The last we've written four stories together. The last one we wrote was a play about. Which was actually a complete, which you talk about religion, that was a completely religious thing. It was a play about a trial that happens in a church. This is back in 2019. I think we finished it early 2020 or mid 2020.
Yeah.
Right before or right around the pandemic. But yeah, so we still write together. We still have we've written some deep stories. Some of them have been my ideas, some of them have been his. Our last one seemed to be kind of a story we both needed to write for our own sakes based on our own experiences. But I let Jesse with Fishfire take the lead. His idea, his knowledge. I filled it in with my own ideas about the world here and there and settings. And so we definitely try to keep working and moving forward because we understand that we're writers and writers are meant to write.
Yeah, and Kristian and I actually wrote a poem together, got published last year in the Pending newspaper as well.
We collaborated on short stories, a play, and poetry. And it's not uncommon if we're at a poetry reading that I will read a poem he has written, and he will read a poem I have written. It's not uncommon. We were just engaging in that just yesterday, so we tried.
That's good. I applaud it. Yeah, I think that some people who maybe even have a desire, they lose drive, maybe lose some little motive on their own, and so having a creative partner is good. Even writers who don't write together will often have a trusted reader or two that they'll talk about some ideas with. You guys are both in Southern California, Hollywood, and all of that. Is that you said a play that you wrote? So a play and a screenplay aren't far apart. You'd consider that, I imagine, or no?
Screenplay, not me. I haven't considered it. No.
No, we've never done a screenplay. Now, if Fishfire were to be, after people viewing this were to be picked up by Warner Brothers, we would want two things. One, we would want Robert Duvall to play Kearney, and two, we would want to write the screenplay. And three, we don't know exactly how we're going to do one particular scene. We may there, but let me just say it'll be easy for a certain alternative version of that movie to be done for certain mature audiences. But in all seriousness, no, we're not into screenwriting much. The play is the closest we've come. But again, with all these stories, it's every writer's dream, I think, to get his story published, and then to get it into a movie or something like that. And I think if Warner Brothers came to us tomorrow and said, "Hey, we really like this Fishfire idea. We want Duvall to play Kearney," Jesse and I would jump at the opportunity to write the screenplay. But we're more, I think, I'm not disciplined enough to write a screenplay with all the indenting and italicizing of everything. It was hard enough writing a play, but I think prose is really what we're meant for. I hope I'm speaking for both of us. I hope I'm accurate, Jesse.
No, you're accurate. I think prose is meant for both of us too. Yes, as you know, we both write poetry, but I feel like Kristian's more of a natural when it comes to poetry than myself.
He has the prose, I have the poetry, and we try to bring that together. I mean, I think there's a false dichotomy. I don't think it's an either or. I think a lot of prose could be written like poetry, and of course, you've got prose poetry.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and we've written before, yeah.
And that was, yeah. So that's why, to be honest, when I was reading the short story, I felt like I'm maybe because the description is so nice in the canyon, I felt like the scenery was good. So I was like, it's easy to visualize. And then, yeah, it's not uncommon for even short stories to be blown into the larger, especially when you've got this rich backstory like you guys have developed in that, the history part. But definitely it's a lot easier to get a story, a prose short story, out into the world and then see what happens with it. So have you sent this out for any kind of contests or attempts to get it published or anything like that, or any of your other work? I know we're in the pandemic, so the open mic reading thing is a little bit down, but there are still maybe some opportunities. I know you just said that you got one poem published, but what about the stories?
We do have a prose poem that also got published like about a year. Was it like about almost 2 years ago? And then Fishfire, I believe I did submit it somewhere, but I haven't heard back. I don't remember.
We've tried to get every bit of our writing that we do together published. Mm-hmm. We don't take the attitude of the artist who draws the most beautiful painting in the world and crumples it up because no one deserves to see it. I don't think either of us are so self-involved. I think we write to get published, but we also write because that's what we do. We enjoy it. You're not a writer because you write. You write because you're a writer. And that's really what it comes down to for us.
All right, that's good. Yeah. Well, thank you. What else? Any other thoughts or ideas that you guys want to bring up?
I think that's all for now. Thank you for the opportunity, Evan. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. I thank you, Professor Kendall. I really appreciate it, and thank you, Jesse, for demanding that I do it on a Sunday.
I know. Yeah. So we had done this before in class, and in a way, this is maybe better. I mean, we're all sort of adjusting, but it's good to use the technology since we have it. I know eventually we'll be out in public again, but I've seen, bigger and bigger names now doing some campus events through, from other colleges now coming to our college. And so you just got to keep these options open. But yeah, that would explain why we don't have too many other folks here, because this was originally going to be a Thursday, but yeah, no problem there. Yeah. So, but thank you. And definitely keep working, keep writing. And like I said, I'll follow up with some of the feedback from my students, what they liked, didn't like about the story and stuff like that.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Yeah.
And I hope Jesse's okay with this. We would be very happy and very honored to field any questions post-term about it from them that they want to send. we'd be very happy to answer any of that material, any correspondence, any further clarification that we can do. We're happy to do it.
Sounds good.
I mean, that's what I did last time when we read when you had your students read the other short story co-written by my friend Andrew, and some of them were like, I remember like some of them telling me that some of this feels a little over exaggerated, some of this feels like inaccurate. I remember that. So I'm okay with it.
It's a fun thing to teach literature because, you know, we are trying to teach ways of reading and deeper appreciation and things like that. And it's not much like some of the other classes. And so I really work with the in-person students to try and get that kind of conversation. But I'm telling you, with the Zoom thing, it's tough. People really are the shy people are even shyer. And so that's why I'm going to show them some of this video. I don't know all of it's maybe half, and maybe we'll see. But I want them to see that you guys are like real people. You know what I mean? It's and that it is worth talking about. And then questions would come up naturally because we're curious about art. We're curious about what people are trying to do, and frankly, psychology remains something deeply curious to people. So. I really was impressed that your story hit on quite a lot of things. And I would have expected more participation. I just wasn't sure how many people wanted to come on a Sunday, but we're here. That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So what I'm gonna do right now is end the live stream, but we're not gonna end the Zoom. So you'll probably see that like red